And welcome back to the Constitution Line by Line. I'm Paul Fabrizio.
I'm Don Frazier, and we are now finishing up Article 4.
Yes, indeed.
This is Section
4.
Section 4.
And there's no clause. It's just Section 4 of Article 4.
With a big chunk of information about to come at you like a fire hose.
Yes, and this actually comes up a lot in conversation.
It does.
Okay, so here we go. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and, on application of the legislature or of the executive, parentheses, when the legislature cannot be convened, end parentheses, against domestic violence.
So we will bail you out if you have a local insurrection.
That's right. And you think about examples where the federal government has provided National Guard troops, sometimes has nationalized them in the event of riots, civil disobedience, that sort of thing.
In case the farmers of western Pennsylvania decide to violently oppose a whiskey tax.
Yes. Or my favorite case, Klamath Falls, Oregon. 2001, people were upset at the federal government for water rules regarding water. Yeah. And federal agents swooped into the town to make sure the locals didn't get out of hand.
Well, and that probably has to do with what happened in Waco.
Mm-hmm.
That all of a sudden this became an FBI issue, and Texas Rangers said, no, we have this well in hand. Federal authorities said, we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
That ended well.
Yeah. So in the case of Klamath, I just have to say, local citizens decided to have a peaceful protest.
Well, that's Oregon, as opposed to Texas.
True, but we're talking deep south Oregon, so it's not like Portland. And so what they did is they took water from where they legally could take it, and they had a bucket brigade, and everybody passed down this bucket of water and dumped it in where they weren't supposed to, just to demonstrate their upsetness with
their upsetosity
with the federal government and its water rules.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, that has nothing to do with any of it. It actually does.
No, it does.
It does, because it's the federal government stepping in.
Correct.
Make sure there's no domestic violence. But let's do the first part. Republican form of government.
Yeah.
The United States shall guarantee a Republican form of government. So what's a Republican form of government? I have an idea of what it is.
Okay, let's have it. You're the political scientist.
To me, it is where the people elect representatives who then serve them in the legislature. So it's a representative form of government. It's a kind of democracy, but not direct democracy.
Correct.
It's
not Athenian democracy.
Right. It's not town hall democracy.
Correct.
It's the people elect representatives to do their job or to make decisions for them. The problem is here, there is no definition of a Republican form of government.
Well, we know what one isn't.
We know what one isn't. We have an idea of what one is, but the Supreme Court has never defined what a Republican form of government is.
So the People's Republic of Vermont could be a Republican form of government, even though it's just straight up communist.
Yeah, because I guess the argument would be communism is an economic system, not a political
system. Not
a
political system, and we have elected representatives.
Yes.
Although they all run unopposed, and they all have to be party members.
Yeah. So what is a Republican form of government? Is there boundaries that define it?
Interesting, because it's not very well laid out here.
No.
Now, we know if there's a military junta, that's not going to stand.
Right. And, totalitarian government like Kim Jong-un.
Or what Lincoln claimed the Confederacy was, a military dictatorship.
Okay. So therefore he could suppress it.
He could suppress it.
But we don't know what it is.
But we don't know what it is. So you have to define the bad guys however you want to define them. Because the Confederates would have said, no, we are a republic.
Right. Were they, in your mind?
They were a very oppressive republic, and they didn't have complete jurisdiction over all their territory, and so they went through the Republican form, But so
there were elections for
representatives.
Yeah,
there's Congress and there's representatives and everything that they inherited from that Constitution they put in their Constitution.
Did they have an electoral college to elect Jefferson Davis?
No, Jefferson Davis got elected the same way George Washington did.
By acclamation.
Yeah. What are you doing? You're not doing anything good. We need you to be president. And so we never got to the point
of having a next election.
Having a next election within the Confederacy. So that's, who knows. But no, they had Congress, and Congress was oftentimes at odds with Jeff Davis because it was easy to be at odds with Jeff Davis.
There's a lot to be said for.
Yeah, they claimed that they were a Republican form of government. Lincoln, in several of his written statements, it's military dictatorship. So therefore, we've got to help ensure that these people have a Republican form of government.
Was there elements of a military dictatorship?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the universal conscription was draconian. Tax in kind was draconian, both things that the Confederacy resorted to, which is I'm going to take 10% of your property whether you like it or not, and I'll come in and tell you what 10% I'm taking. And I'm also taking your sons, whether you like it or not. And if I need to take your slaves and press them over here to build forts for us, I'm doing that as well. And so a lot of people are going, well, why did I trade the tyranny of Washington for the tyranny of Richmond? Now, here's something that'll make your blood run absolutely cold, and this is research that is very current with me, but not very well represented in Civil War literature. Mm-hmm. So you may hear it here first. When the Mississippi Valley falls to federal forces, the Trans-Mississippi is cut off. Mm-hmm. So the Confederate commanders in the Trans-Mississippi have to essentially craft their own economy, craft their own government to be separate from Richmond. Mm-hmm. In fact, Jeff Davis says, look, you guys are on your own. Good luck. And so Edmund Kirby Smith, the Confederate commander of the Trans-Mississippi, starts looking for partners. Well, down in Mexico, Napoleon III has invaded Mexico, but Napoleon III is the emperor of France. And so you have Confederate officials in Shreveport negotiating with an imperial system, with an emperor, for assistance to maintain their position, even offering the French to come in and kind of take over the show.
What?
I'm telling you. And so...
and this was not in relation to... This was him acting as a free agent. He's not part of the Confederacy.
This is not anything Jefferson Davis told him to do. Jeff Davis had sorted out. And one of his solutions was, well, if we became kind of a satellite of the French Empire, then we would have French troops. And the Union critics and observers said, this is the first time in American history that Americans have willingly offered to abandon their Republican principles.
Wow.
In order to achieve a particular outcome. Yeah, and you just don't hear much about that.
No, you don't.
Mostly it's about the siege of Petersburg and Gettysburg and all that stuff. Meanwhile, there are some outrageously important things happening in the Trans-Mississippi during the course of the Civil War that have very interesting and unexpected constitutional implications.
The South was really way off.
Well, and it once you had that fracture, and again, we have seen so many fault lines in this.
Yeah.
And once those fault lines split, they can sometimes lead to a crack in an unexpected direction. And the idea that, we'll give up our sovereignty to the Empire of France in order to win is creepy.
And did they think that through? If they win, then what happens? They're part of France?
Then they'll be...
the Louisiana Purchase is just voided?
Well, it's kind of reversed in a lot of ways. I think that they figured they would get a better shake from the French because the French would need them. Now, it never comes to pass because the French said, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole, man. We're just not even getting close to that. And the French actually negotiate a secret deal with the Federals and say, look, you don't mess with us, we won't mess with y'all.
Yeah.
And we'll handle our business in Mexico. You handle your stuff in your country. We'll see who gets their business handled first, and then we'll renegotiate.
Yeah.
It turns out the United States got their business handled first. And the French said, well,
we're out of here.
Yeah, y'all beat us. Y'all broke the tape before we did, so
let's go to Paris.
Yeah, see you later, Maximilian. But anyhow, that's an interesting implication of this idea that we are always going to have Republican forms of government. Now, what you hear today is the people saying they're trying to make us socialist.
Okay, they do.
But you can have a socialist republic.
Yes, you sure can.
So, again, it's the difference between politics and economics.
Yeah, and you keep bringing them back together with justification in this document because your argument is that this is an economic document as well as a political document.
Correct.
But they can also be separated,
They can. It is more of a double helix.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the DNA of our country.
What I think about when I think about this is there is no definition of a Republican form of government. And here in the state of Texas, our representatives do the deciding, except after they finish their legislative term, there's various things that they then present to the voters for their approval.
That's true.
Is that, in fact, a Republican form of government? Or you go to many other states where there's an initiative or a referendum.
Or a recall.
Citizens can actually put on the ballot laws that citizens write, and they can just totally avoid the legislature. Is that really a Republican form of government?
Yeah, because constitutional amendments in Texas are put to the voters.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that Republican?
Is that Republican?
And the safe answer is the Constitution doesn't tell us what a Republican form of government is.
So it is if we say it is.
It is if we say it is.
Because we're going to grab it.
Exactly.
And beg permission.
A lesson that we keep on learning and learning. And you notice that this Section 4 follows the discussion in the Constitution of acquiring states and acquiring territories. So in other words, as the country grows, the United States government is going to make sure that there is a Republican form of government.
Correct.
In each of those new places.
Kansas Territory will become the state of Kansas with a Republican form of government.
Right.
It will not be a three-person junta.
Right.
A triumvirate.
Yes. Thank God. Now, final thought on this. I don't know if you're ready for a final thought.
Sure.
We talk about acquiring territory. Talk about adding states. But your favorite subject, the Civil War, there's nothing in this Constitution.
I'm a Civil War buff.
Yes. More than that. You're a distinguished historian of it. There's nothing in the Constitution about leaving the country.
Correct.
There's nothing in there about breaking up and saying, I've had enough of this.
What if we're just sick of California? Can we jettison them from the Union?
Can we?
Can we expel them?
And the answer is there's nothing in the Constitution. So what does that mean? As we've learned,
you see if it sticks. And it turns out secession didn't stick.
Yes.
And then we had Supreme Court rulings that said, finally, secession is illegal.
Right.
I'm thinking of White versus State of Texas in particular. So,
okay, tell us about that case.
Well, secession is not legal. Yeah, that's kind of, Texas can't secede.
When was that case?
Late 19th century.
Okay.
So Texas can divide up.
But it cannot secede.
Cannot secede. Secession is now settled.
Okay. Per Supreme Court interpretation of the Constitution. Okay. So the movement a couple months ago of someone in California for California to secede from the United States.
Yeah.
Can't happen.
And it's not going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
And you had the Republic of Texas guys, and they all said, so it'll end up the same way. They'll say, we've seceded, then you're going to have to overthrow the state government, set up your own government, and then you'd better dig in.
Yeah.
Because the federal authority is going to come in to suppress that rebellion.
Yes, they will.
That's kind of how this thing, there was actually a war plan for that.
No.
War Plan White. Back in the interwar years between World War I and World War II, they had the color-coded war plan. War Plan Orange was against Japan, for instance. War Plan Black was against Germany.
And War Plan White?
War Plan White was domestic insurrection.
Wow. We don't like to think about those things.
We don't. But it's there.
But it's a theme again and again, the Constitution.
Yeah. So must be a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, we're done with Article 4.
We're done with Article 4.
We'll pick up Article 5 next time. Thanks.
Thank you.